Everyone thinks Japanese politeness is fake and American directness is rude. But here's the reality check that'll blow your mind. Both cultures are using completely opposite strategies to solve the exact same human problem: how to coexist without losing your sanity. The twist? Neither approach is actually about being nice or mean. They're both elaborate psychological defense systems, and understanding which one feels more comfortable reveals way more about your own cultural programming than you think. Let's get real about what we're actually witnessing here. Japanese politeness isn't politeness. It's social engineering disguised as manners. When a Japanese person bows and says "sumimasen" for the 15th time in a 5-minute conversation, they're not being extra nice. They're performing a carefully choreographed ritual that prevents social chaos by making everyone's role crystal clear. It's like living inside a beautifully designed machine where every human interaction has been optimized for maximum efficiency and minimum conflict. American directness isn't directness. It's emotional outsourcing disguised as honesty. When Americans say, "I'm just being honest," before delivering brutal feedback, they're not being brave truth tellers. They're transferring the emotional labor of managing feelings onto the person receiving the information. It's genius. Actually, instead of spending energy figuring out how to deliver difficult news gently, Americans just dump the information and make it everyone else's problem to process. The comfort level question is where things get fascinating. Japanese politeness feels comfortable if you enjoy predictability and hate surprises. Every social interaction follows a script, so you always know what to expect. The comfort comes from never having to guess what people really think because the system assumes everyone's thoughts are potentially dangerous to social harmony. It's like living in a world where all the sharp edges have been covered with bubble wrap, safer, but you can't actually touch anything real. American directness feels comfortable if you enjoy authenticity and hate guessing games. Every social interaction is potentially explosive, but at least you know where you stand. The comfort comes from never having to decode hidden meanings because Americans will tell you exactly what they think, whether you asked or not. It's like living in a world where all the bubble wrap has been removed, more dangerous, but at least you can actually feel what you're touching. But here's where it gets really spicy. Japanese politeness creates what I call comfortable suffering. Everyone's stressed, but the stress is distributed so evenly and predictably that it becomes background noise. Japanese people aren't happier because of all the politeness. They're just stressed in a very organized, socially acceptable way. The comfort comes from knowing that everyone else is managing their stress just as invisibly as you are. American directness creates uncomfortable honesty. Everyone's getting their feelings hurt regularly, but the emotional chaos is treated as the price of authentic relationships. Americans aren't happier because they say what they think. They're just stressed in a very visible, individually managed way. The comfort comes from knowing that emotional mess is normal and everyone's dealing with their own drama openly. The workplace dynamics reveal everything. In Japanese companies, meetings are like elaborate theater performances where the real decisions were made in private conversations beforehand. Everyone knows their role, everyone performs their part perfectly, and the actual meeting is just a public ritual to make the predetermined outcome look collaborative. It's comfortable because there are no surprises, but it's also exhausting because nothing is ever really resolved, just elegantly postponed. American meetings are like gladiator arenas where people fight with PowerPoint presentations. Everyone shows up ready for intellectual combat, the loudest voice usually wins, and decisions get made through a combination of logic, politics, and whoever has the most stamina for arguing. It's comfortable because conflicts get resolved quickly, but it's also brutal because someone always leaves feeling defeated. The friendship patterns are completely opposite, but equally intense. Japanese friendships are built on mutual consideration to the point of telepathy. Friends spend enormous amounts of energy figuring out what the other person needs without being asked, because asking would imply that the other person failed in their duty to anticipate your needs. Japanese friendship comfort comes from never having to explain yourself because true friends should already understand. American friendships are built on mutual honesty to the point of therapy. Friends spend enormous amounts of energy telling each other exactly what they think, because not sharing your opinion would imply that you don't care enough to help them improve. American friendship comfort comes from never having to guess what people think, because real friends will tell you the truth even when it hurts. The dating cultures show the ultimate contrast. Japanese dating is like a complex negotiation between two diplomatic teams. Every interaction is carefully calibrated to maintain maximum optionality for both parties while revealing minimum vulnerability. The comfort comes from never being rejected harshly because nobody ever commits to anything definitive enough to reject. But it's also frustrating because nobody ever commits to anything definitive enough to feel secure. American dating is like a series of job interviews where both parties are simultaneously the candidate and the hiring manager. Every interaction is designed to extract maximum information about compatibility while revealing maximum authenticity. The comfort comes from knowing exactly where you stand because Americans will tell you if they're not interested. But it's also brutal because Americans will definitely tell you if they're not interested. Here's my controversial take that's going to ruffle feathers. Neither culture is actually more comfortable. They're just comfortable for different personality types. People who hate uncertainty and love predictability will find Japanese politeness soothing. People who hate ambiguity and love clarity will find American directness refreshing. But both systems create their own special forms of emotional exhaustion. Japanese politeness is comfortable for people who enjoy emotional puzzles and have high tolerance for indirect communication. If you're the type of person who enjoys figuring out what people really mean behind what they actually say, Japanese culture is like living in a constant escape room designed specifically for your skill set. The comfort comes from successfully navigating complexity. American directness is comfortable for people who enjoy emotional efficiency and have high tolerance for confrontation. If you're the type of person who prefers to deal with problems immediately rather than letting them fester, American culture is like having permission to address everything head-on. The comfort comes from successfully managing chaos. The stress manifests differently in each system. Japanese politeness stress is like chronic background anxiety, always present but never acknowledged. People develop incredibly sophisticated coping mechanisms for managing the constant pressure to read social situations perfectly, but the cost is living in perpetual low-level alert mode. The comfort is that everyone's stress is invisible, so you never feel alone in your suffering. American directness stress is like acute emotional whiplash, intense but brief episodes of interpersonal drama followed by periods of relative calm. People develop thick skin and rapid recovery skills for bouncing back from direct confrontation, but the cost is living in perpetual preparation for the next emotional ambush. The comfort is that everyone's stress is visible, so you never feel crazy for having feelings about things. The global adoption patterns prove that both systems work for different types of global citizens. Japanese politeness is spreading in cultures that value harmony and long-term relationships. You see it in Scandinavian conflict avoidance, Canadian over-apologizing, and even in corporate environments worldwide where diplomatic communication has become a professional skill. American directness is spreading in cultures that value efficiency and individual expression. You see it in startup cultures worldwide, in social media communication styles, and in any environment where authentic feedback and transparent communication are treated as professional virtues. The plot twist is that both cultures are evolving. Japan is slowly incorporating more direct communication as younger generations push back against excessive politeness protocols. America is slowly incorporating more considerate communication as people realize that constant honesty can be exhausting for everyone involved. So which one's more comfortable? The answer depends entirely on what kind of discomfort you prefer. Do you want the discomfort of never knowing what people really think, or the discomfort of always knowing exactly what people think? Do you want the stress of constantly reading between the lines, or the stress of constantly managing other people's unfiltered emotions? The real revelation is that comfort isn't about the communication style. It's about having a communication style that matches your emotional processing preferences. Some people are energized by solving interpersonal puzzles. Others are energized by direct emotional exchange. Neither approach eliminates social stress. They just package it differently. If you enjoyed this cultural deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe for more mind-bending cultural insights, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Which culture should I decode next? See you in the next one.